You know, there are super rich gold ores, gold and silver, that come from kinds of mines called epithermal type deposits. And, you know, I want to talk today about recognizing and identifying different kinds of gold and silver ore. And we're going to show you different examples and talk about the minerals. And this place I'm filming today from the heart of bonanza gold and silver country in Virginia City. Behind me is a shaft that went down over 2,000 feet, and they took tremendous amounts of gold and silver out of this area. Literally, the whole Comstock lode produced something like 10 million ounces of gold and about 200 million ounces of silver. It was just a tremendously productive area. And so I want to talk to you about these examples of gold and silver ore and how to recognize them and how you can find some for yourself. So let's get started with that.
And this is the kind of bonanza ore that I'm talking about. This is something we'd all like to find. Now, just to be clear, this is a big commercial mine, the Round Mountain mine in central Nevada. And the pan that the lady's holding is gold and quartz mix, so it's not big chunks of solid gold, only the gold is what you see, but there's plenty of quartz mixed in. And this is really a publicity photo. The lady is an employee, she's not an owner, and there were two big strong guys that helped her get into position, because I'm told the pan weighed about 60 pounds. Helped her get into position, and then they stepped out, they snapped the photo, and then the guys stepped back in to help her. But still, this is the super high-grade ore that's found in places in Nevada. Not all of it's quite this high-grade, but there is some really spectacular bonanza-level ore from Nevada that's worth looking into. Now, this mine, the Round Mountain mine, produces some amazing crystal gold specimens like this. Takes your breath away just looking at it. Imagine what it'd be like finding something like this. But it is a big commercial mine, and no, they don't allow tourists to come in and take some gold. But they do have sales every often where they take specimens like this. They do collect them, the employees, and then they sell them off for the mining company. Here's another beautiful crystal specimen from that mine, and it was for sale for $10,000 some years ago, when probably the value of the gold in the specimen would have been maybe $3,000 or $4,000. So it sells for much higher than the price of the metal value of the gold. Here's another beautiful crystal specimen from that same Round Mountain mine. Now, I just want to make the point that, yes, they hit into some of this really coarse, beautiful crystalline gold and specimens, but the majority of what that mine produces is microscopic gold that has to be recovered with cyanide. And so there are areas within the mine that have the super high grade, but most of the ore, most of the gold they produce is from superfine stuff that's recovered using cyanide. But Round Mountain is by no means the only mining area that's produced some of this really amazing, super rich bonanza gold ore. This is a specimen from Goldfield, which was famous for producing tons of material that literally ran, half an ounce to a couple ounces of gold per pound of rock. With super rich ore like this, that they were going to have a problem with miners high grading and stealing stuff. As some of the miners made $20, $40, $50, and maybe even $100 a day just stealing ore, super rich ore, because when you can see the gold in it, it's got real value. And that literally tons of material were stolen. And when the owners fought back, there was riots, and even the army had to be called in by President Roosevelt. Here's another specimen from Goldfield. And, although essentially all of this stuff was either stolen by the miners or taken to the mill and crushed to recover the gold, there is still a little tiny bit of ore once in a while found on some of the dumps, but the property, it's all private property and mining claims and stuff, so there's not a lot of opportunity for the average prospector. But still, there's some stuff out in the distance away from Goldfield that might have potential. But there were a number of districts in Nevada that produced the high-grade stuff. This is from the Fire Creek mine in kind of north-central Nevada. And it also produced some spectacular specimens, and it was being actively mined until about 10 years or so ago. This is another specimen from the Fire Creek mine showing some nice gold crystals. And, you can't see into the wall with it. If this specimen was an inch into the rock, you can't see it with your eyeball. And so I offered to the geologists that when the mine was still active that were running there, I offered to go out there and show them what can be done with a metal detector, but they poo-pooed it and didn't think much of it. And a year or so later, the mine closed. Maybe they could have found a lot more gold if they'd have used the metal detector and availed themselves of the technology that exists. The Olinghouse Mining District, which is only about 30 miles east of Reno, also produced some amazing gold, and this is a specimen that was taken from there, and it's known for this fine, flaky, wiry gold. They have placer deposits out there, and I've seen nuggets from the Olinghouse district where it looks like you had a little bit of a Brillo pad or something, made of gold, of course, and scrunched it all together. And like you could take this wiry stuff and scrunch it into a ball, and that's what their nuggets look like. The Manhattan district in Nevada is another one known for nice nuggets and some really beautiful crystalline gold. This is a specimen from Manhattan that's electrum gold. You look at it, it doesn't look the yellow color that you expect from gold. It's really pale. And it is that way because the gold that's there is alloyed naturally with a lot of silver. And as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of these bonanza gold deposits are gold or gold and silver. And so this particular one has significant silver alloyed with the gold that grew into these crystals. Now, not every mining district in Nevada has nice, coarse, crystalline gold that's easy to find or, can easily locate it with a metal detector. But there's a lot of them that do, and you shouldn't discount the idea of going through some of the mine dumps with your metal detector and seeing what you can find. You're going to find a lot of trash because usually mine dumps are very trashy, but this little wire specimen of electrum gold, this is more electrum, that's up in the upper left-hand corner of the rock there. It was a nice specimen found with a metal detector in an old mine dump in a really obscure little mining district that had a little short-lived boom that lasted for less than a year, and the miners gave up. But they did find some nice gold, and I've found some nice gold there, and so have my friends that have been there with me. There's a lot of rich ore that can be found with a metal detector in some of the mine dumps of the old mines of Nevada. Now, I'm not recommending that you go out and trespass or, break anybody's claim or, even do something dangerous. But there still is a lot of opportunity and place where you can explore and a good chance that you might find yourself some gold. This is a 20-gram wire gold and quartz specimen that I found in Nevada with my metal detector in an area around an old mine. And, this is spectacular stuff. It's out there for those who want to seek for it. And of course, Nevada isn't the only place that produces high-grade gold. There's a lot of other places that can produce it. This particular piece is estimated to have 316 ounces of gold in it. This is a large boulder. You can't tell really easily from the picture what the scale is, but this is a couple of feet across, and the layer of gold is a good inch thick. And so there's a lot of gold here. And what's interesting was this piece sat upside down. The part that you can see a lot of gold, but if you turned it over, you wouldn't see much. And it sat upside down on a mine dump for many decades until it was discovered by a guy who was cutting or doing road reworking, cutting roads into this mining area. And he accidentally turned this rock over as he was pushing his bulldozer along and revealed the gold that was on the underside. So, this is what I say about mine dumps. There's things out there. There's treasure out there to be found for those who are out searching, and metal detectors and even just a pick and a shovel can really reveal some great stuff if you know what you're looking for. And Arizona has its share of this too. The southern half of Arizona, including districts like Oatman, have their own bonanza gold districts that they have produced a lot of really good ore out of. And the southeastern part of California, the desert area out there, also has these epithermal bonanza type gold districts in them and have produced some really spectacular ores. Even New Mexico has some of this type of gold. It's found in the southern and western parts of the state and has produced a lot of the gold that's found there. So you can see these types of deposits are very widespread and can be found in a number of places. And that knowing what you're looking for is a big key. Now, this is another specimen from Colorado, and the silver-colored minerals on here, and that's not just some sulfide that's worth, 20 cents a pound. That's calaverite, a gold telluride, and these crystals are more than 50% gold by weight. And the discovery that this district had tellurides was something that turned this district around. And so I actually did a whole video on this. If you're interested, I will put a link here and you can check it out for yourself if you're interested in more detail. But as I mentioned, a lot of this ore is not just rich in gold, it's super rich in silver too. And some of these areas, especially at Virginia City, they produced huge amounts of silver and huge amounts of gold. Now, a lot of the Virginia City ore does not have easily visible gold in it, but it's there in the rock. It's there in the ore. Here's a close-up of some of that ore. You can see the dark-colored band across the middle that goes diagonally through there. That's rich in silver minerals, but there's small particles of gold sprinkled throughout. An assay of this whole rock ran over 6 ounces of gold and over 54 ounces of silver per ton. Now, if you figure that out and calculate it, that comes out to be $11 or a little more per pound. Now, you could go out and pick up some of this stuff, and if you pick up a 5-gallon bucket full, you could easily have more than $500 worth of gold and silver just in a bucket full of ore material that you picked up off of the dump. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So just because a specimen doesn't have gobs of obvious gold hanging off it doesn't mean that it isn't really high-grade bonanza ore that would be worthwhile to process. Here's another sample of silver ore from Comstock Lode. It says silver ore, but it's super rich in silver, of course, but it's also very rich in gold as well. The records of the Comstock Lode showed that it really was only about 55% silver to 45% value for the gold. So, it produced more value of silver, but the gold was almost as valuable as the silver. So they're pretty even. Here's some more of that super rich gold and silver ore from the Comstock Lode, and you'll see these little bluish black spots on it. A lot of times silver minerals will appear like that with the bluish black spots. That's little zones super rich in silver, and then there's gold sprinkled through here as well. Here's an example of some very rich oxidized ore from the Tonopah district in Nevada. Now, this doesn't look like that much, but you see those dark streaks in there? Well, the prices on this tag are very old and would equate to about 600 ounces of silver per ton and about 35 ounces of gold per ton. This truly is super high-grade, bonanza-grade ore, even though it's just not all that obvious to look at it. Oxidized ores are created when the ore deposits are exposed to weathering through the oxygen in the air and rainwater, and it converts the sulfide minerals into other forms. And so you get this super oxidized, super high-grade oxidized ore. And Tonopah was famous for having some really very rich ores at the surface. Here's another example of oxidized ore. This is from the Austin district in Nevada, another famous district that produced lots of gold and silver. This ore really doesn't look like much. It just looks like some rusty quartz, but it contains over 2 ounces of gold and a large amount of silver as well. It just is not as obvious to look at, and that's common with oxidized ores. One of the amazing things about oxidized ores is that sometimes those silver-bearing sulfide minerals will be actually converted into metallic silver during the weathering process. They actually go from being chemically combined sulfides to being free metallic silver, and often silver grows in these wiry forms. So this is another thing that can be found in some of these bonanza deposits, the occurrence of metallic silver. And of course, this is something that would sound off very easily on your metal detector. Now, I mentioned that these super rich bonanza gold and silver ores form out of a type of deposit called epithermal deposits. And these basically mean that they form nearer to the surface than a lot of other types. Now, I've mentioned that these deposits occur all over the world. While most of Nevada's rich deposits fall into this class, there's similar deposits in California, Arizona, New Mexico, and elsewhere. And of course, it extends down into Mexico. Many of the Mexican deposits for gold and silver are of this type, all the way down into South America, same thing. It's even important in Japan and follows around the Ring of Fire in the Pacific. And it's even important in the northeast part of Australia. So they really are a worldwide category of deposits. And so let's take a look at a diagram and look into how these deposits form. Here's just a diagram to help explain epithermal deposits. Down below the diagram here, you would have some heat source, whether it's molten magma or whether it's an intrusion or some other source of heat. And then coming up along a fault zone is the mineralizing fluids. And eventually you reach a boiling level. And below the boiling level, you get mostly base metals, but above the boiling level, you start getting significant gold and silver. And then as it goes up to the surface, when you get almost up to the surface, and in the yellow or the gray here, you might get mercury or antimony being deposited. And at the surface, you might have a hot springs with steam coming out. Now, this is the hot springs at Yosemite, and there's more than just a few geologists who think that deep down, well below this, maybe 100 or 200 feet, maybe 300 or 400 feet, down below these hot springs and all this reaction on the surface and hot water, that there's some sort of a gold and silver deposit being formed. Now, we'll never know in our lifetimes because it's still hot and still buried and it's a national park. Now, I'm hoping this video will inspire a bunch of you to go out and take a look for these types of deposits, that there's mine areas and dumps, and you don't have to go in and do anything dangerous, but to just explore these areas, maybe with your metal detector, maybe with just a pick and a shovel. But it's out there. And now I want to show you this handful of rock. These are 4 really nice bonanza grade gold and silver specimens I picked up in Virginia City just the other day. And so it's out there. It can be found, but you have to get out and explore. And hey, enjoy the exploration because it's a beautiful world, and there's lots of things to see, lots of things to learn.
Now, in any kind of gold and silver prospecting that you're doing, what you know makes all the difference in the world. And that's where I wrote a book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it, but I also have partnered with an outfit called High Plains Prospectors, and between my book and High Plains, of course carries the book, you can get a discount with High Plains, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about High Plains and about my book that tells you how to find gold and silver. I'm going to talk to you about that right now. This is my book, Fistful of Gold. It's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know to go out and find gold for yourself. It distills down my 45 years of experience out in the field prospecting, as well as my degree in mine engineering. It's Like I say, an encyclopedia, there's a lot to it. It's over 250,000 words long, hundreds of pages with hundreds of illustrations, teaching you what you need to know about geology, about mining districts, about techniques of finding gold. It covers metal detectors, sluicing, panning, dry washing, high bankers, you name it, it's covered in there. It talks some about platinum and diamonds, but it's mostly about gold because gold is more widespread. It is not so much a book about where to find gold, but a book about how to find gold. Because even if you have a location where gold was mined in the past and you go out there, well, where should you look to be successful in your prospecting, to find the gold that's there? This is the book that's going to tell you that information. I spent most of 10 years writing this book, so I thought a long time about it. It's got, like I say, lots of information and lots of illustrations, and I've had results from people who bought it. It's available on Amazon, but I recommend buying it through High Plains Prospectors, and I'll put a link in the description for buying this book through them. They have a better price than Amazon, and I have a special deal that I'll tell you a little bit more about, where you can get a 5% discount from the price even with that. On Amazon, the book rates a 4.7 out of 5, which means that of all the people that have bought it, they've been really highly satisfied, and I think you, if you buy my book, will be just as highly satisfied as well. Now let's talk a little bit more about High Plains Prospectors. They're a prospecting shop, a mail order prospecting shop that I've partnered with. The deal is that I can get you a 5% discount, a coupon code, and I'm going to put the code to that right here. It's just Chris Ralph, all caps with no space between Chris and Ralph. You put that in there as a discount code and you'll get 5% off their already really good prices. I think it's a great deal where you win by getting a discount, I get a little percentage of that, and they get new business. So if you need prospecting supplies, High Plains is really the way to go. And I'll put information, like I say, in the description more about how you can work with them, because I'm working with them. They really are great guys, a great company. For even more information, I also have a website, and I'm going to show you my webpage and talk a little bit more about that right now.
This is my webpage. It's located at NevadaOutbackGems.com. You can Google it, or I have a link down in the description below. But there's lots of information here, miscellaneous stuff, pictures, some historic information as well, stories. It's got a lot of great fun stuff. You'll probably be interested in it.
Now, on all of my YouTube videos, I encourage you guys to ask questions. If you have thoughts, comments, suggestions for things that I ought to look at in my videos, things that you want to find out more about, and I answer 100% of my questions. There's not very many YouTubers out there that answer 100% of their questions. I'm one of the few. And so I will do my best to answer what you have. I mean, I only can write so much. Sometimes the answer is something where I'm going to recommend that you buy the book and read about it. I also ask that you subscribe to my channel, click the bell notification so that every time I come out with a new video, you'll be able to watch it. And like I say, I cover a huge amount of topics. I also have 250 videos that I've already done. And so you can go back through my catalog of videos on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be many videos there that you'll want to take a look at, especially if you have any interest in gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, geology, and that sort of stuff. My YouTube site is going to be right up your alley. So I'll see you again real soon. We'll be out in the field and back in the office at the whiteboard, and whether we're looking at gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, or other interesting geology, it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it, and we'll see you again real soon.